And welcome Manish Singh with Tech Mahindra and of course Franklin Flint, CTO at TIA, that's the Telecommunications Industry Association. I want to talk to both of you about really NFV and why it's so prominent here at this Mobile World Congress event, but really the role of various stakeholders in NFV, specifically maybe system integrators in NFV. And Manish, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. From your perspective, what is the SI's role in NFV right now?
Yeah, great, thank you. Thanks first of all for having us. And in terms of, if I take a broad look at the industry where things are, there's been tremendous progress that the industry has made, and I tend to think of it in three phases. I mean, we had the initiation of the industry, which started with the, in 2012 with the seminal white paper and formation of HC-SIG, and then the industry went into ideation where a number of POCs came out, but then almost we've been stuck in ideation. And the challenge now for the industry has been how do you get out of ideation into implementation at scale, and how do you really start to deploy real-world NFV solutions at scale. And that's where I see the role of the integrators to really bring that scale and speed up the overall network transformation using SCN and NFV.
Now, of course, Franklin, TIA is moving into the NFV space with their NFV lab. Why is it, from your perspective, and we talked about this before, why is it a collaborative landscape rather than a competitive landscape as far as the other labs that exist out there?
Well, there's a lot of people doing very important work in various labs, and it's a good reason for them to be there, and that work needs to continue to move forward. But there's also a lot of gaps in what needs to be accomplished before the carriers and the service providers are going to be comfortable doing the full implementation and take advantage of all the benefits of NFV. They really want to get there, and among the things they're looking to do is they want to be able to be assured that all the components that they're deploying today are going to be compatible with the components they're deploying in the future. Like a scale is critical to the NFV marketing model and the build-out model. They're going to start at a certain size and then grow it and then grow it and then grow it. Well, they don't want to pick one vendor and be stuck with that vendor for the entire life. Now, they may choose to do that because that vendor makes the right product, but they want that option to get the best product at the time that they need it for their solution. And so we're going to be working really hard at the end-to-end compatibility of these solutions. We're going to create a service chaining model and test it across multiple NFV stacks and solutions and components and show that you can have different vendors, different suppliers, different ecosystems connected together and still have a single service go across that at the expectations the carriers have on how secure is it, how is the performance going to meet their requirements, is the uptime going to meet their requirements, and can they operationalize it across multiple solutions, right? And that's what they're looking to do, and that's what the TIA goal is, to help build that out. And we're going to be putting the teams together to do that, and in the lab is we're going to test and prove and show that it can be done.
Is there a challenge, Manish, in the NFV space that you think that maybe a lab could offer up some context
Absolutely.
and solutions for?
Yeah, I think if we think about from a lab perspective, there are multiple things, right? I mean, in terms of showing a wide variety of solutions that they work, integration, testing, but I think beyond that, when I think about the lab framework, I also think about how to bring in certification so that you can, again, speed up the overall network transformation. The other piece which I also, broadly in the context of integration and the challenges and some that Franklin alluded here, right? I mean, we also see that you have a lot of innovation coming out, for example, from open source activity, right? So whether we are looking at the SDN controllers or work that's coming out on VIMs, there's really compelling innovation that's coming out. But at the same time, there is a legacy infrastructure. There are things that are out there, and all these innovative solutions need to be onboarded and integrated and made to work side by side with what exists already, because there's no rip and replace here. The existing infrastructure is going to stay. So the other key aspect also is, apart from an integration standpoint, how do you take this open innovation and then make the necessary extensions and integrate it with what exists already out there. And just to share with you one simple example, we just, from a Tech Mahindra standpoint, we announced our collaborative partnership with OnLabs on ONOS. That's one of the Open SDN controller, where we are working with them, again, making extensions on the V-routing, on Quagga, on the routing plane, but also working to really take that solution and help them take it to field and integrate with existing infrastructure. And again, that's where integration becomes, and integrators play a very key role to make that happen.
Now the fact that TIA's NFV lab is really a global effort, talk about that like nuance and how that really is a competitive differentiator to those other labs out there.
Sure, well, NFV is a technology that's going to be beneficial to every carrier and every integrator and every supplier in the industry, regardless of where you are. It's a common technology. How it gets implemented might be unique from country to country, but the technology itself is going to be consistent. So the ability to have a sliceable network, a configurable network, a scalable network, and all these automated network, all these things that NFV brings, that's a global exercise. So if we were to build a lab and say this is just a North American lab, well, there might be some innovation there, but it'd be very limited and perceived incorrectly. Our goal is to do the work globally and bring everyone in, because if you get all the right people in one place working on the common goal, you're going to get more done, it's going to be more implementable down the road, and there will be fewer confusion points when the carriers start making decisions about how they're going to implement their own NFV. So it's a truly global exercise, and many of the labs are, but a few of them are not, and so we are focusing on that broad, bring everybody in to work on one common goal.
Well, let's talk about that. You're in a unique position as CTO of TIA, and with just in the midst of this NFV lab being launched over, let's say, the next 4 or 5 months, or whenever that happens to be, you're in charge of getting companies like Tech Mahindra involved, system integrators involved in the NFV lab, but also carriers involved, and their suppliers, and on down the line. How have you seen? Where are the primary challenges in that experience?
Well, one of the things that is challenging about NFV as a whole is that there's a lot of research and development and creation and testing of solutions that you can put an SLA against and that sort of thing that needs to happen before it can start replacing the existing network designs. That work costs money, right? And without a carrier buying that from you yet, you're having to invest in something that you don't necessarily know where the horizon is that you get the return on that investment. And so a lot of companies are doing that. They're spending a lot of money, they're doing it right. We all know NFV is going to be taking off. But when you show up and say, okay, we're building a lab, we're going to do this thing, they can see the value and the benefit of that lab, but then they have to balance that with how much money are we spending doing our own research and development, how much money are we spending working with an existing customer on their specific needs and requests, how many other labs are we involved in, and that becomes a discussion you have to have. They have to think, is this where we need to be? I believe that we've gotten to that point. I believe the TIA lab is where we need it to be. But now people have to fit it into their budgets, into their schedules, into the limited resources that they have to work in a lab like this and bring them all together and start delivering stuff. What was interesting about all these conversations is that everyone agrees with the concept of the lab. They agree with the vision of the lab, they agree with all the goals that we're trying to accomplish. But they were struggling with how do we get started and how do we make this happen? Where's the short-term, first 3 months benefit for being involved in this? I believe we're getting past that now and we're ready to start delivering. And that's why I'm getting really excited now. I'm hoping to be able to make some kind of announcement soon that we're getting started and we're driving this lab.
Are you finding, Manish, that SIs like Tech Mahindra and getting involved in is it OnLab? OnLab. Yeah. Also maybe TIA's lab, that maybe providing the necessary hardware equipment or software resources would be enough to sort of get your foot in the door and get involved in that lab? Are you finding that?
So I'll tell you this, right? I mean, in case of, for example, the work we're doing with OnLabs, right, on the ONOs, we're definitely providing the contributing towards open source development, and so contributing resources and making efforts towards that. Same thing with testing and certification, so we're contributing towards that. And I think, as I said, overall when I look at the ecosystem in the industry, as I said, I mean, it's almost stuck in ideation, and we need to break that barrier to cross the deployment chasm and take these solutions and innovations out from these POCs to real-world deployments at scale. And it's really breaking that, and that's where these labs and open innovation, how do we take them? And what are the tools and processes and how do we bring the integrators into the overall mix to really help move the industry forward. I think that's the real key here.
I know, Franklin, there's a number of moving parts, even in this short conversation, I can see them, that you have to sort of get those ducks in a row to get this thing off the ground. I'd hate for you to have to forecast in front of all these people when you'd like to get the NFV lab launched, but when would you like to get the NFV lab launched?
About a month ago would be ideal. No, I think realistically, you could see us having the first instance up and running and some tests being done within the next couple of months. I believe that's entirely possible. Certainly by the end of the year, we should have multiple instances up and running and doing that real broad cross-network service chaining and assurance and testing and security and all those things. That would be my hope. I think we're going to be able to do that.
Manish, it's important to have companies like yours and people like you to just at least have the conversation about how we can all collaborate on a project like this. So we hope to have your participation at some point down the road, and thanks for your time here on stage.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Franklin, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, guys.